On today's show, the competition to sign Nathan Eovaldi gets a little bit stiffer. And I'm going to talk about why Blake Snell signing with the Dodgers is actually not only a good thing for baseball, but a really good thing for the Rangers' offseason plans. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Paddock, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 seasons as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Paddock. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. And before we get into a couple of teams emerging as suitors for Nathan Eovaldi, the Blake Snell deal, why it's good for the Rangers and their offseason plans. Specifically, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, I hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving. You're all sitting there stuffed on turkey, filled to the brim with tryptophan. But while you were stuffing yourself and I was stuffing myself with stuffing, some bit of news trickled out this week from John Morosi of MLB Network, amongst other places. He tweeted this out on November 27th that the Orioles and Braves are among the teams with interest in free agent Nathan Eovaldi, as I mentioned on MLB Network this morning. Now, John Morosi is a very reliable source, so definitely take what he says to heart. He is tweeting a whole lot about hockey a lot of times during the offseason, so I don't always turn on his notifications. So I missed this one until I was doing my prep for this episode, but that makes a lot of sense. Nathan Eovaldi being pursued by a couple of teams with playoff aspirations. Nathan Eovaldi, of course, one of the best big game pitchers in Major League Baseball, being pursued by teams that are going to be presumably pretty comfortably. I feel like saying these teams are going to have some big games for big game Nate to go ahead and pitch in for their team. There are also a couple of teams that could very much use starting pitching, and it just makes all the sense in the world. Nathan Eovaldi, the Orioles, that one I saw coming about a mile away. I don't know if it was reported or leaked, but there was definitely talk amongst Orioles folks that Nathan Eovaldi, should the Rangers have been sellers at the trade deadline, if the Rangers were sellers at the trade deadline, Nathan Eovaldi was going to be a big target for the Orioles. It just makes all the sense in the world. Not only getting another big game pitcher, getting a guy who is a vet, who has been there, done that, the impact he has had on Rangers young starters, and just the clubhouse vibes, as well as just another big guy. The Orioles needed a lot of pitching help this season. They got Corbin Burnes. They traded for him last winter. He is a free agent. I think that Corbin Burnes will absolutely, I feel very confident saying that bringing back Corbin Burnes is going to be priority number one for the Orioles. So Nathan Eovaldi is not going to be top priority for them, but they're definitely having some interest. I mean, they have some young starters who could use some mentoring, a young Grayson Rodriguez, youngsters like Kyle Bradish, who is going to be out for at least the first half of next season. He had Tommy John surgery. He was fantastic, a top 5 Cy Young finisher in 2023. This year only pitched in 8 games for the O's, was very good in those 8 games, but alas, he had TJ surgery with the internal brace, like Jacob deGrom. Of course, this one was performed by Dr. Keith Meister, the Rangers doctor. It wasn't just him that had Tommy John surgery. Tyler Wells, also Tommy John surgery. Grayson Rodriguez had shoulder issues last year. And, this is how the rotation stacks out right now to show you how much they could very much use Nathan Eovaldi. I mean, as of right now, if they don't make any free agent signings, which I don't anticipate being a thing, Zach Eflin is their number 1 starter. Grayson Rodriguez, Dean Kremer, Trevor Rogers, who they traded for at midseason last year and was terrible, And then Albert Suarez, who was kind of a revelation and kind of confusing that he was that big a part of their rotation. Made 24 starts for them last year, 133 and 2/3 innings. The second most innings on their staff was Albert Suarez, the 34-year-old journeyman who was pretty solid. Not spectacular, a 3.7 ERA, but pretty solid. And they could use some help. Not just bringing back Corbin Burns, but now with new ownership, it seems like the Orioles are going to be much more likely to spend at least medium. I mean, right now they're going to have a lot of guys. They have a lot of guys who are arbitration eligible. They will be projected for around more than half their payroll, I think, is going to be arbitration. Because right now there's not a whole lot of big ticket guys, big money guys on their roster. The highest paid player on the O's roster next year is Zach Eflin at $18 million. The next highest projected is Cedric Mullins, who's projected to make $8.4 million in arbitration. I don't know if he'll make all that much, but then you have two guys tied. It's Sir Anthony Dominguez and Ryan O'Hearn at $8 million. They got room to spend. I mean, right now they have $179 million in luxury tax space. About 45 to 50-ish million of that will probably be eaten up in arbitration, as they have just quite a few guys that are ARB eligible. Will make a decent chunk of change, but nothing anywhere even near what Nathaniel Lowe is projected to make this year. I mean, they have a lot of room to spend. It's unclear how much they're going to spend with this new ownership group, but that was the hope. That is the hope for Baltimore, since they have so many young pre-ARB guys that are going to be big parts of their team, including a guy who finished top 5 in MVP voting in Gunnar Henderson. They have to add a lot of pitching, and adding Nathan Eovaldi makes all the sense in the world for them. Also for the Braves, right now, they could also use some starting pitching. They're in kind of a similar position to the Rangers in that they are trying to get under that luxury tax. And like Baltimore, one of the top free agent starting pitchers on the market was on their team last year. And I don't see Fried coming back to Atlanta being nearly as likely as Burns going back to Baltimore, because the Braves' MO is just get these guys, trade them, draft them, acquire them, however they do, and then sign them to these big, long, probably under market, definitely under market for a lot of these guys, including the former MVP and Ronald Acuna Jr., but signing those guys to these long-term extensions to stay there for a while, usually under market value. And since Fried has been on this team for a hot minute and never signed one of those big, long extensions, walking in free agency always seemed likely. And with the top lefty on the market, lefty starting pitcher, and Blake Snell off the market, it seems like a lot of teams will be very amped to give Max Fried quite a bit of money. It seems like the Red Sox are going to be very in on him. They're already raising the "We Tried" banner on Blake Snell about an hour or two, it seemed like, after he ended up signing that deal. God bless you, Red Sox fans. But they've got some holes in their rotation as well. The Atlanta Braves, they've got Cy Young winner Chris Sale. They've got Spencer Strider coming back next year, who missed all of this season with elbow reconstruction surgery. They have the youngster Spencer Schwellenbach, or not Spencer, Daniel Schwellenbach. Doesn't matter. Schwellenbach, who was a fantastic pitcher for Atlanta this year. That's their top 3. And outside of that, they could definitely use some depth. Charlie Morton is walking in free agency. There's just not as much depth there as Spencer Schwellenbach. No, it was Spencer Schwellenbach. They have a couple of Spencers atop their rotation in Strider and Schwellenbach. I'm just second guessing myself. But outside of those two and the Cy Young winner in Chris Sale, they definitely don't have a whole lot of veterans. They have Reynaldo Lopez, who is going to be in year 2 of getting back to being a starting pitcher. Was pretty solid in year 1 of their reclamation project of moving him from a bullpen role, which he was with the White Sox after being a starting pitcher and then moving to the bullpen. Atlanta signed him to a decent sized deal and said, hey, we're going to try you as a starter. And he was pretty solid in that role. But outside of that, I mean, their depth options in the rotation, guys like, Bryce Elder, who had some moments, but all of greatness and some moments of very not so greatness. Their former first round pick, who was an all-star the first half, and then less than all-star form, we should say, in the second half. They also have youngsters like Hurston Waldrep, who is a top prospect, AJ Smith-Shawver, who is a top prospect, Dylan Dodd. But in terms of just guys who you can count on and guys who can step up in big games, Nathan Eovaldi makes all the sense in the world for them, especially if they're not going to be all in on bringing back Max Fried, which seems like is going to be the likely outcome. But in terms of these free agent pitchers, I think that Nathan Eovaldi is going to be very coveted, with Blake Snell setting the market of, and Yusei Kikuchi setting the mark of how much these starting pitchers are going to get. It might end up getting to the point where Eovaldi is priced out of the Rangers price range, but there is a pitcher who they are targeting who is not going to be that expensive, who the team that was projected to be the favorites to sign him just added another pitcher to their rotation in Blake Snell. We're going to talk about what Blake Snell signing means for the Rangers and why it's a very, very good thing right after this. This show is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is the best way to get tickets for all the live events you're looking to go to. Whether it's sports, whether it's music, whether it's comedy, whether it's theater, no matter what you're looking to get tickets for, Gametime is the best way to get those tickets, and Gametime Picks makes getting those tickets even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They've got all-in pricing. That toggling this feature shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. They've also got the lowest price guarantee, where Gametime will credit you 110% the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first order. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Now, this week, there's been more news pre-Thanksgiving than I have seen in quite some time, with one of the biggest free agents on the market taken off the market. That's right. It's Blake Snell, two-time Cy Young winner Blake Snell, going from San Francisco to Los Angeles, signing with the Dodgers a 5-year, $182 million deal. There is all kinds of funky stuff going on with that contract. There is a base salary of $13 million. He's also got a $52 million signing bonus, a good chunk, a very big chunk, $65 million of this money is going to be deferred, which seems to be the Los Angeles Dodgers way. It's going to count for $34.4 mil against the luxury tax, so still going to count quite a bit against it. But again, this is a huge, huge shock seeing Snell go to Los Angeles, now the third different NL West team that he is playing for in the last 3 seasons. Now, why does this matter to the Rangers? Why does this matter at all? Well, Roki Sasaki is why this matters to the Rangers. Roki Sasaki, the Japanese player who is getting posted, a starting pitcher, a guy who throws real hard, has a fantastic fastball. I was about to say curveball. He does not have a curveball. He has a fantastic slider as well and a fantastic splitter. 3 excellent pitches. A very young man who has been dominating in Japan, and the Dodgers were the favorites to sign this young man, to add him to their rotation as maybe the second, but probably the third most famous Japanese pitcher in their starting rotation. With the Snell signing, the amount of pitchers, I need to go through it for you because I had to go look this up and see exactly how many starting pitchers the Dodgers will be employing next season. And boy, howdy, is it a lot. You start off with, of course, the guy they just signed in Blake Snell. Then they have Shohei Ohtani. Yeah, remember he pitches? He pitches too. He's probably not going to pitch 150 or 200 innings next year, probably around 100 to 120 after missing all of this season pitching-wise with Tommy John, or some kind of mystery elbow surgery, which is almost assuredly Tommy John with the modified brace, a guy coming off of the elbow reconstruction surgery. And all he did was have an MVP season as a hitter. They also have, remember, Tyler Glasnow, who missed a decent chunk of the season, did not have Tommy John surgery on his elbow, but missed a big chunk of this year had back issues, had elbow issues. He's a guy who just has not been able to really stay healthy. Pitched 22 starts, 134 innings for them this year, but he's projected to be completely healthy for opening day. When he is on, he is absolutely fantastic. And that's their number 3 starter in the rotation. Number 4 starter for the Dodgers, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. The number 4 starter, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, the guy who signed the biggest pitching free agent contract in MLB history. 4 starter. Insane. Then at the 5, you have Gavin Stone, the rookie who led the Dodgers in innings pitched this year with 140 and a third innings. Kind of shows you the state of why they need a bazillion pitchers. Then they have returning Tony Gonsolin, who missed all of this year and was pretty darn good from, I believe, 2020 to 2022. He had the second lowest ERA in Major League Baseball. The only guy who had a lower ERA in that span, well, that's Jacob deGrom. Then they also have Dustin May, who has missed quite a bit of time for the last 3 seasons. When he's healthy, he is absolutely explosive. The local kid, I can't remember exactly which DFW suburb he is from, but he is a Texas boy and a North Texas boy at that. They also have Landon Knack, who pitched a few games for them last year, 12 starts, 15 games overall, 69 innings. Pretty nice kind of performance for him. Also had 69 strikeouts. Also nice. Then they have Bobby Miller, a guy who throws 2 different fastballs, 100 plus miles an hour, who got rocked quite a bit in the first couple of starts, first handful of starts, got sent back to the minors, and then came back and looked fine because he's a starting pitcher who just chucks absolute gas. Still, his overall numbers don't look very pretty last year, but there's a lot of potential there, and he's going to be 26 next year. That's the 9th guy that I have mentioned. And I haven't even mentioned the former MVP, the former multi-time Cy Young winner, who has not officially gone back to the Los Angeles Dodgers, but he's not going anywhere else. That's Clayton Kershaw, who is dealing with a foot issue, dealt with shoulder issues last year. The actual deal has not been announced, but the 5-time ERA title holder, the former Triple Crown winner, the 3-time Cy Young winner, 10-time All-Star, also a Gold Glover, and Roberto Clemente Award winner, and a 2-time World Series champion, Clayton Kershaw. That's the 10th guy that I've mentioned for the Dodgers. 10 starting pitchers. Now, even if, let's say, 3 out of these 10 guys have some kind of injury and they don't pitch at all, that's still 7 quality guys in this rotation. Not to mention that there's a few other guys in their minor league system that could come up and be serviceable starting pitchers for them, because that's the kind of insane depth the Dodgers have. And while that's very good for them, it's very good. I know Snell, no matter which team he signed for, it literally doesn't matter what rotation, he's going to be one of your top 5. There's not going to be a question for Snell of pitching in your rotation. Now, whether he's your number 1 in your rotation, 2, 3, 4, there's not going to be many, I don't think any rotations where he's the number 5. But still, Snell is a 2-time Cy Young winner, as frustrating as he might be at times to watch because he doesn't pitch very deep into games or whatever issues you have with him. He is still one of the best pitchers in baseball. And so it wasn't hard for the Dodgers to convince Snell to sign. Said, oh, we've got a bunch of other starting pitchers. We got a bunch of other big free agents on this market. You're still going to get your bag. You're still going to get a very hefty bag of cash to come and pitch for the Dodgers. But you're not going to be fighting for your rotation spot if you're healthy. That's not going to be a question. Snell's going to be in there. But when you look at Roki Sasaki, when you look at the teams that are going to be pitching him in free agency to come pitch for them, the Dodgers were presumably the favorites. They signed the 2 best Japanese players in the game the last couple of years. Well, there may be some debate on whether Yoshinobu Yamamoto is the 2nd best Japanese player, but they got the 1st best one in Ohtani. They got the highest paid one in terms of pitchers that are not also hitters in Yamamoto. Are they going to be able to go to this youngster, this Roki Sasaki, and say, hey, I know we have 10 guys in our rotation, half of whom might be hurt, maybe even 6 or 7 of them. They had this many guys plus several others. Actually, they didn't have Snell last year, but they had basically this many guys, plus several others that were on the roster last year, and they ended up with 2.5, 3 starting pitchers by the time we hit the World Series. Are they going to be able to convince Roki Sasaki, hey, you're guaranteed to have a spot in this rotation? You want to come fight for a rotation spot to be the third most famous Japanese starting pitcher on our roster? I think it's going to be really, really hard for them to convince Roki Sasaki to come pitch there. Or maybe it's not. Maybe this is just foolishness and everyone on the Dodgers is going to be hurt and Roki Sasaki can just jump in there and pitch and be amazing and it won't matter. But I don't think that's the case. I think this is a very good thing for Texas because the team that everybody had been favoring to sign Roki Sasaki for, heck, the last 2 seasons, ever since you started hearing about the name Roki Sasaki, everyone just thought, oh, no, Dodgers are going to be it. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be the Dodgers. There's no way it's not. But with this Blake Snell signing and with the incredible amount of depth, which good for the Dodgers going and getting that they have in their rotation, even with a lot of injury-prone guys, which talk about why that's related to the Rangers and their 2023 World Series winning strategy of getting lots of pitchers, and why Blake Snell getting a big old payday is not just good for the Rangers in their pursuit of Roki Sasaki, it's also good for Major League Baseball. Talk about that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get 150 bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Looking at the MLB odds for 2025 World Series favorites, real shocker, the Dodgers are still the #1 favorites at plus 380, but the Rangers all the way down there at plus 3,300. That's behind the likes of the Cubs, the Guardians, the Mariners, the Diamondbacks, tied with the Red Sox right around the middle of the pack at that plus 3,300. If you're thinking, well, that's a little bit low for those Rangers, I'm feeling good about the Rangers. I'll just go to FanDuel.com and join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now, this deal is good not just for Blake Snell getting a big old paycheck, a good sign for if you are a fan of Scott Boras, which if you're a fan of Scott Boras, you're probably either employed by the Scott Boras Corp agency or he is your agent. And that's why you are a big fan of that man, Scott Boras. But this is not just good for the Dodgers getting another rich guy. It's forcing teams to pay big money to catch back up to the Dodgers. It is following a strategy that the Rangers had in 2023. I talked about it on, I believe it was Wednesday's show, about my mentality and I think the Rangers' mentality. I think pretty much everyone's mentality about starting pitchers being similar to that scene in Ocean's 11 when they're forming the crew and they've got 10. And then Danny looks at his partner, Brad Pitt, and says, well, you think we need one more? Do we need one more? Yeah, let's get one more. And they ended up getting their 11th. And, well, it's possible for the Dodgers to go and get their 11th starting pitcher if they go and get Roki Sasaki. But this is just a good thing for baseball, forcing these owners to pay these players. Because it's frustrating if you're a fan of a small market team. The Rangers are not that. They are not a small market team. They have acted at times like a small market team in a frustrating fashion in the likes of 2019 and 2020. And before they had this whole rebuild plan of let's go and spend big, let's go find the biggest market inefficiency in Major League Baseball in paying good players to come and play for our team. That's what they did. They signed the likes of Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. It's been about 3 years since the Marcus Semien signing. Not quite 3 years, I don't think just yet, since the Corey Seager and John Gray signings. But they also paid the likes of Jacob deGrom, whose deal I was looking a little bit more into this in reference to this recording. Thankfully, I feel good that Jacob deGrom is getting more money than Blake Snell. I feel like that's earned. It's a difference of $3 million. could end up being a difference of more than that if the Rangers end up picking up that club option in 2028. But I was just looking at some of the incentives that were kind of interesting for Jacob deGrom. It is a baseline of a $20 million club option in his age 40 season in 2028. There are bonuses for Cy Young voting. There's a bonus for a World Series MVP, $150K for World Series MVP, $250K for a Cy Young win, and then $100,000 each for All-Star, LCS MVP, and also a Gold Glove. I just kind of love that, him playing good defense as a pitcher is the same bonus for being an ALCS MVP or even an All-Star. I just find that kind of hilarious and interesting. But I mean, this thing worked of signing a bunch of pitchers. The Rangers at Christmas time last year, actually Christmas Day, I think was when the signing of Eovaldi happened. The first Rangers signing of Eovaldi. Hopefully, it won't be until Christmas for the Rangers to have the second Eovaldi signing. Very much hoping that happens. But the Rangers felt like they had a full rotation before that 2023 season, in the winter of 2022. And they got one more in Nathan Eovaldi, and boy, how did that make all the difference in the world. And the mentality was, look, we've got a bunch of old starters. We got a bunch of guys who have had durability concerns in the past, don't have a whole lot of youngsters in this rotation that are about to jump up into the big leagues and contribute for the 2023 season. So let's just get a whole bunch of these old broken guys, and surely not all of them can be hurt at the same time. And at least a couple of them will be healthy in October. And well, most of them were hurt heading into October, but not all of them. Nathan Eovaldi was healthy in October. They also had a healthy Andrew Heaney in October. And heck, even the two guys that they traded for, they added so many starting pitchers. It felt like they had, around 7 or 8 heading into the season. They traded for 2 more in Max Scherzer and Jordan Montgomery at midseason. But that is, surely they can't all be hurt. Well, the wrong one got hurt in Jacob deGrom, and the Rangers still won the World Series. Heck, they had Max Scherzer hurt for most of that playoff stretch, pitched rehabbing at the big league level in the ALCS against the Astros and got walloped, and then threw 3 quality innings in Game 3 of the World Series against the Diamondbacks, and then got hurt again. Got a ring, flags fly forever. But still, the Dodgers are kind of employing that same kind of mentality of, okay, we got Snell and Ohtani and Glasnow and Yamamoto and Stone, Gonsolin, May, Knack, Miller, Kershaw. Surely we'll have at least 3 or 4 of them healthy come October, and maybe they will. But I think that this bodes very, very well for the Rangers and their hopes to get Roki Sasaki. But something else that the Rangers could learn from the Dodgers, not only just not being broke boys, spending money on good players, but the deferrals. I think the Rangers could learn a lot from the deferrals. It's something that the Rangers haven't really done much of anything. And it's not just the Dodgers who are doing this. I mean, the Nationals were kind of the first ones to really go about that, to make it in a big way. You obviously have Bobby Bonilla Day for the Mets. There were some deferred payments there every day, every July 1st, I think, until 2030 something. But the Nats really started off in a big way when they signed Max Scherzer to that free agent deal. There was a lot of deferred money. There is still quite a few years that Max Scherzer will keep on getting paid by the Washington Nationals. They also did it with their big old extension to Steven Strasburg after he won the 2019 World Series with them. Didn't end up looking as pretty as the Max Scherzer deal did. But again, flags fly forever, having their homegrown starter getting paid, as even though he fell apart completely after that because injuries just really plagued him. It's not just the Dodgers, the point that I'm making. There's also been teams like the Mets, the Yankees, I believe, have done it at times. And it's something the Rangers haven't liked to do, but it's something I think they need to do if they're going to play, maybe not even at the top end of this market, but even just to get a guy like Eovaldi. I think the Rangers might end up having to use quite a bit of deferred money to sign him, because there's still a bunch of questions about what the RSN deal is going to look like. Are the Rangers actually going to be able to get it done and build their own regional sports network before the season starts? Heck, maybe even before spring training. There still have not been a lot of details announced there. So the finances, again, are in question, like they were last winter, where the Rangers did a whole lot of not that much and probably should have done a little bit more. with all of the money that they got from being World Series champs. I know I spent a decent chunk of change on getting World Series merch, as you can see from this. You can see from this trophy and many, many other items that I'm sure Rangers fans spent a decent chunk of change that the Rangers had. There are questions about how much money they're going to get from their TV deal, but while there are questions, and eventually that money will get back to normal or some version of normal, while there are questions about exactly how much they're going to spend, why not defer a lot of that money? Why not kick the can down the road when you do have some more certainty and you can feel a little bit better about paying out those big dollars? Because the Rangers need to keep this momentum. They are in danger of losing a lot of momentum. I mean, they did lose a lot of momentum. You win your first ever World Series in 2023. You have all these youngsters coming up. You have all of this hype after winning that World Series. You have these beautiful gold uniforms, and then you poop the bed as reigning World Series champs. One of the worst title defenses that we've seen in quite some time. Rangers didn't even make the playoff. They didn't even finish above 500 this year. And if you do that again in 2025, talking about how, oh, we don't know how much money we're getting from our RSN deal or from our TV money, you're going to lose all kinds of momentum. This was the time to bring in the bandwagon fans. This was the year to not only get those bandwagon fans that just hopped on for that World Series run, but to keep them as lifelong baseball fans, as many of them as you could. And a lot of them hopped right on and right back off that bandwagon with how bad things were in 2024, because the Rangers didn't do much of anything last winter. Didn't seem like they needed to, with an offense that was locked down long-term, looking like one of the best offenses in baseball. You can't really have expected them to be one of the worst offenses in baseball in 2024, but still, now the Rangers know that there are some moves to be made. There are a lot of things that need to be done. There's reason for hope. There is a lot of young talent. There's a lot of hitters who I think will bounce back next year. But the Rangers got to make some kind of splashy move this winter, whether it's a Roki Sasaki, whether it's that plus Eovaldi plus Kirby Yates, whether that's making some kind of big trade for young controllable starting pitching, or heck, just a bat to reinforce this lineup. The Rangers got to do something. And I think learning from that deal, from Blake Snell, from, of course, Shohei Ohtani, and maybe being a little bit more likely to get Roki Sasaki with the Dodgers rotation being 9 deep at the moment. I think that is a good thing for the Rangers and their hopes to get the guy who I'm pretty sure is their most coveted free agent this winter in the young Japanese starting pitcher, Roki Sasaki. That's going to do it for this week's shows. I'll be back next week. And unless the Rangers do something crazy this weekend, which I'm not necessarily anticipating, but thank you all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.